Hey everyone, today we're doing an alignment chart, or rating really, for our killers. The alignment chart is a chart for moral classification. Like the survivor ratings, I'm basing this off of the descriptions for the alignments listed on the Dungeons & Dragons alignment page on Wikipedia. Let's get started. To start us off, we actually have a new alignment, relevant only to the killers, which is unaligned. Creatures not sapient enough to make decisions based on moral choices, but operating purely on instinct are described as unaligned. Sharks are savage predators, for example, but they are not evil. They have no alignment. In here I'm going to place both Demogorgon and Dredge. Demogorgon is essentially a predatory animal, then the Dredge is this combination of many different human and animal parts, with no clear intent aside spreading fear, and so presumably simply acting on instinct for whatever it is. Let's properly start off with Lawful Good. A Lawful Good character typically acts with compassion, and always with honor and a sense of duty. However, Lawful Good characters will often regret taking any action they fear would violate their code, even if they recognize such action as being good. Plague, I would say, is the one character to fall here, with all of her actions being good intentioned, the only questionable one being her murder of Haban, but that being a highly debatable one, where she was proving her faith, which to her and everyone else at the time was very much real. This one factor debatably puts her closer to the chaotic side of good, or potentially into neutral even. In the role of High Priestess, Adiris always acts with honor, and will typically even put herself in the line of danger before her people. Adiris' connection to the rules and traditions of the time to a great extent lands her here, I think, with her intent to serve her gods well and the people of Babylon. Debatable though for sure. A neutral good character typically acts altruistically, without regard for or against lawful precepts, such as rules or tradition. A neutral good character has no problems with cooperating with lawful officials, but does not feel beholden to them. In the event that doing the right thing requires the bending or breaking of rules, they do not suffer the same inner conflict that a lawful good character would. First off here I would put Hag, with a slight desire to take shortcuts with use of the hexes, going against her grandmother's word, and the general word of her town too. Her intentions seem good though, at least not ill-intentioned, and she simply was unlucky, falling to the lure of the hexes, and later requiring them to escape her captors. Spirit I would also put here for similar reasons. She appeared to be a good person overall, but occasionally breaks into these moments of rage. They are largely justified though, like when she beats up her bullies. She has this inner dragon, as it's described, but she clearly does not like it or how it makes her act. Onto Chaotic Good. A chaotic good character does what is necessary to bring about change for the better, disdains bureaucratic organizations that get in the way of social improvement, and places a high value on personal freedom, not only for oneself, but for others as well. Chaotic good characters usually intend to do the right thing, but their methods are generally disorganized, and often out of sync with the rest of society. Artist I would place here first. She has a clear hatred for bureaucratic organizations, places high value on personal freedom for everyone, and does what she can to cause social improvement through her art. Her method of doing this is out of sync with society, but isn't something I would call chaotic necessarily. Overall, I think she fits her. Wraith I would also put here. Philip first kills the soldiers who tortured and killed Fenanya, a woman who acted almost like a mother figure to Philip. When he kills Azarov, he also has reason to do so, as it's revealed he's been crushing people for him since he began working at Autohaven. Philip's intentions seem good throughout. He's just caught in a variety of awful circumstances. Twins is kind of the same. They aren't bad people, it's just they are landed in awful circumstances in their upbringing, and then further their adult life, or Charlotte's adult life. They kill as a result of their circumstances, as they are hunted from birth. Onto the neutrals, starting with Lawful Neutral. A lawful neutral character typically believes strongly in lawful concepts such as honor, order, rules, and tradition, but often follows a personal code in addition to, or even in preference to, one set down by a benevolent authority. Starting out, we have Susie and Joey of the Legion. The main reason I want to place them here is for one of the examples given for Lawful Neutral being a soldier who always follows orders, or enforcer who adheres mercilessly to the letter of law. They aren't exactly lawful, but I think their loyalty and the idea of a personal code set down by the other Legion members makes them fit here. In a similar way, Cannibal fits here. Bubba largely does what he does out of fear of his family. He doesn't necessarily do it for the purpose of trying to be good or evil. He fits into a similar following orders role. Despite his bad deeds, he does have a lot of loyalty toward his family. Trapper is kind of the same in that he fits in this enforcer or following orders role. Throughout his tome, he does have a great degree of loyalty, founded on respect, that he only breaks when it is clear that trust has been broken. He somewhat falls into being his father's enforcer though through manipulation and the traumas of his life. He isn't good, but I equally wouldn't consider him evil, with this struggle clearly continuing on into the realm. Next we have True Neutral. A neutral character, also called true neutral, is neutral on both axes, and tends not to feel strongly towards any alignment, or actively seeks their balance. I kind of want to place Executioner here. I think Pyramid Head seems more like a tool to enact change on others, and doesn't appear to have any malice in his actions, or gain pleasure from them in the same way some of the other killers might, evidenced by the fact that once his duty is completed, he enters the long rest. Therefore, I feel he's true neutral. I think it may even be debatable that he's unaligned even. Finally, in neutral we have chaotic neutral. A chaotic neutral character is an individualist who follows their own heart and generally shirks rules and traditions. Although chaotic neutral characters promote the ideals of freedom, it is their own freedom that comes first. Good and evil come second to their need to be free. Hillbilly I would place here primarily for the part good and evil come second to their need to be free. Billy does kill a bunch of people, but he does it because they're bad, and they directly compromise this freedom, with this then extending to after his escape, when anyone who enters onto Thompson land is killed. At the end point of his lore, Billy isn't evil, but he also isn't good either. His freedom is what matters most after years of imprisonment. Huntress is kind of on the same page here. I don't think she necessarily has any concept of good and evil, outside of what enters the Red Forest. She's more concerned by her own freedom and the protection of her land. She's a character who already exists largely outside of wider society, and its rules anyway. I would also place Onryo here. She's put in a pretty rough spot after being chucked down a well. She becomes vengeful after this, but for good reason really. Upon the entity freeing her, she seems happy to serve it, suggesting her freedom really does come first. So I think she fits here, with her freedom mattering over good or evil. Blight's intents have always seemed to be outside of good and evil too. Even though he causes a lot of bad things, that never really seems to be his intention. He's clearly lacking ethics, but I don't think he's intentionally bad either. His need for freedom, and his goal to reach new worlds, I think lands him in chaotic neutral. Deathslinger is another character I would place here, as a character with a similar need for freedom outside of good and evil. Slinger doesn't really do things with the intent of being evil, but more so to gain his own freedom, or to avenge where he has been wronged. Not innocent, but I don't think quite in line with some of the killers that we'll discuss later on. Finally, Pig I think lands in chaotic neutral. Amanda does some pretty awful stuff to people, but it does equally seem to be outside of this idea of good and evil, and more so what she considers is right or is helping people. She seems to be convinced by her own experiences with Jigsaw that they will help others. Purely for the trap she uses, she's closer to that evil point, but I also think she does reside more so in neutrality, due to her intentions. Okay, onto Lawful Evil. A Lawful Evil character sees a well-ordered system as being easier to exploit than to necessarily follow. First off, I want to place Ghostface here, largely due to his meticulous nature and his far more organized approach to his kills. One of the descriptors for Lawful Evil being mercenary types who have a strict code of conduct. That to me kind of sounds like Ghostface, and how he's careful with his approach and kills. Ghostface also uses the system to his advantage many times. Doctor debatably belongs here too. He has no respect for rules or lives, and cares for his own desires, ignoring those of others. He uses the CIA in order to achieve what he wants, allowing him to commit evil deeds with use of a system. Based on his recruitment though, it's made clear that this system is definitely already corrupted. With that said, he's kind of forced to work for the CIA to get what he wants. I imagine he only does because of what they can provide him. His goals still very much remain his own. I think Doctor is both lawful evil and chaotic evil at the same time, to be honest. I don't know exactly where he should go. Probably chaotic. Moving on to neutral evil. A neutral evil character is typically selfish and has no qualms about turning on allies of the moment, and usually makes allies primarily to further their own goals. A neutral evil character has no compunctions about harming others to get what they want, but neither will they go out of their way to cause carnage or mayhem when they see no direct benefit for themselves. I'm actually not really sure who to put here, as I feel the remainder mostly belong in chaotic evil. Debatably Ghostface could be shifted here, and potentially a character like Nemesis, who acts largely on external command. Deathslinger and Huntress could be argued for here too, depending on how you view their motives and general intent behind their actions. I guess an appropriate one to place here would be Cenobite. Pinhead typically manipulates people, making agreements with Kirsty Cotton that he later breaks, all to simply fulfill his goals. I would say equally the Cenobites don't go out of their way to cause suffering, with them only doing so to those who summon them, it seems, and then anyone who gets in the way. That's debatable though, again. So, on to Chaotic Evil. A chaotic evil character tends to have no respect for rules, other people's lives, or anything but their own desires, which are typically selfish and cruel. They set a high value on personal freedom, but do not have much regard for the lives or freedom of other people. Chaotic evil characters do not work well in groups because they resent being given orders, and usually do not behave themselves unless there is no alternative. My immediate thought after reading this description was Clown. I think he pretty much embodies this idea of having no respect for rules or lives, caring only for his desires. Shape is really debatable, I feel, due to his kind of blank slate embodiment of evil thing. It's difficult to discern the intent behind his actions, especially if we are to include different potential explanations, like him being possessed by a demon. I think he fits here still. Nightmare is much like Clown or Doctor. He cares about his own needs, and doesn't have any regard for life, simply doing what he wants. Trickster I would place here too for similar reasons. He uses his power to hurt people, and does so for his own gain and personal enjoyment. He also does not like Mighty One's influence over his music, and them disagreeing with its new direction he took it in, showing further his dislike for being given orders. As I said before with Nemesis, it's debatable he's closer to neutral evil. Equally, I think he could be argued for chaotic evil, largely for his destructive capability, only really playing by the rules because it's literally programmed to do so. Even with that being the case, it seems capable of going against them at will. Oni I will place here, although I think at the very least he does have a different intention aside personal gain, which makes him not entirely fitting for this alignment. However, his lack of respect for rules, the lives of others, and his own desire to keep things a certain way definitely lands him here. There's some nuance with his intention, but ultimately he does what he does because that's what he wants, even going against the word of his family, which is what he claims to go on his murdering spree for. Frank and Julie of the Legion are chaotic evil, I think. The only thing to suggest otherwise, I would say, is their seeming genuine loyalty towards Susie and Joey, and also one another. Aside that connection though, they have no regard for the lives of others, and definitely act selfishly and in their own interest, with their sole goal even being to cause chaos within the quiet town of Ormond. Now, Nurse is one character I haven't placed, and it's because I've been thinking it over for ages, and I just can't decide the right place to be honest, mainly due to her tome lore. Her base lore makes her out as a struggling and troubled person who ends up where she does as a result of her tortured mind and circumstances beyond her control, and quite likely entity intervention, with her in the end believing she is being merciful. Then her tome lore makes her out as someone who despises the patients of the asylum, believing they deserve death. There's a clear contradiction, which makes it really hard to place her. I would debate her tome self is lawful evil, exploiting her role in the asylum to kill off the patients, then her base lore self being more chaotic neutral, potentially even lawful neutral, due to her dual codes. Let me know what you think. I'm not going to claim I have any definitive answer on that one. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and be sure to drop your own alignments down below. Thanks, and goodbye.